In the heart of a dense emerald green forest, where sunlight filtered softly through layers of ancient leaves, there stood a tall old tree, its branches stretched wide like protective arms, offering shelter to countless creatures. On one of its highest branches lived a tiny sparrow. She was small, delicate, and quiet by nature. With great care and patience, she had built her nest using dry twigs, soft blades of grass, and feathers she had gathered from the forest floor. It wasn't much, but to her it was everything. That little nest was her world, a place of safety, warmth, and peace. Though she lived alone, the sparrow never complained. She had learned to find comfort in simplicity. Each morning she woke up with the rising sun, her tiny heart filled with calm. She would flutter her wings, stretch gently, and begin her day by flying across the forest in search of food. The whispering winds, the rustling leaves, and the distant songs of other birds were her only companions. But deep inside there was a quiet emptiness. She often watched other birds flying in pairs or groups, chirping happily, sharing moments together. A part of her longed for that connection, for someone to talk to, someone to trust, someone who truly cared. Still, she never allowed that loneliness to change her kind and gentle nature. One bright and cheerful morning, as golden sunlight poured through the forest, something unusual happened. A crow flew past the old tree. He was larger, darker, and far more confident than the sparrow. As he glided through the air, his sharp eyes caught something: the sparrow's neatly built nest. Curious, he circled back and perched on a nearby branch. The sparrow noticed him immediately. She wasn't used to visitors, especially not crows. For a brief moment, she felt uncertain. But before she could react, the crow spoke. "Good morning," he said in a surprisingly soft and friendly tone. "What a beautiful nest you have. You must have worked very hard to build it." The sparrow was taken aback. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. His voice carried warmth, and his words felt kind, almost too kind. Hesitantly, she replied, thanking him softly. The crow continued speaking, asking her about her life, her daily routine, and how she managed all alone. His words were smooth, gentle, and filled with a strange sweetness that slowly melted the sparrow's hesitation. For the first time in a long while, the sparrow felt seen. What started as a simple greeting soon turned into a long conversation. They spoke for hours that day, sharing little stories about the forest, their habits, and their experiences. The sparrow found herself smiling more than she had in days. When the crow finally flew away, she watched him disappear into the sky, but something had changed within her. The next day he returned, and then again the day after that. Soon it became a routine. Every morning the crow would visit the sparrow. They would sit on the branch talking endlessly. Sometimes they flew together in search of food. Other times they simply enjoyed each other's company in silence. The sparrow began to feel a warmth she had never known before. Her lonely world was no longer silent. She started to trust the crow. His presence brought her comfort. His words made her feel valued, and his companionship filled the emptiness in her heart. Slowly, without realizing it, she began to believe that he was not just a visitor, but a true friend. What she didn't know was that not every kind voice carries a kind heart, and not every friendship is as pure as it seems. Days passed, and the bond between the sparrow and the crow seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. The sparrow, who once lived in silence, now spent her days filled with conversations, laughter, and companionship. She had begun to trust the crow completely. But trust, when placed in the wrong hands, can become the greatest weakness. One afternoon, as the sun stood high in the sky and the forest shimmered under its golden light, the crow suggested something new. "Let us fly beyond the forest today," he said casually. "There is a village nearby. We might find better food there." The sparrow hesitated for a moment. She had never gone that far before. The forest was her home, her safe place. But then she looked at the crow, the one she now considered her closest companion. With a small nod, she agreed. Together they flew across the treetops, leaving behind the familiar green world and moving toward unknown lands. The air felt different, heavier somehow, and the sounds of the forest slowly faded into distant echoes. Soon they reached the village. It was lively and busy, filled with unfamiliar sights and sounds. Humans moved around, animals wandered, and the air carried the mixed scents of food, dust, and smoke. As they flew lower, something bright caught the crow's attention. In the courtyard of a house, a large mat was spread out under the sun. On it lay countless red chilies drying in the heat. Their fiery colors shone intensely, almost glowing under the sunlight. The crow's eyes sparkled, but it wasn't just the chilies that he noticed. Around the mat, tiny red ants moved in large numbers, crawling restlessly as they carried bits of food. The scene was chaotic yet strangely tempting. The crow landed near the edge of the courtyard, his mind already forming a plan. The sparrow followed, unaware of what was about to unfold. "Look at these chilies," the crow said, his voice filled with excitement. "Bright, fresh, and everywhere. I have an idea. Let's play a little game." The sparrow tilted her head, curious. "A game?" "Yes," the crow replied smoothly. "Let's see who can eat the most chilies. It will be fun." The sparrow blinked in surprise. "Eat chilies?" She had never tried anything like that before. The very thought seemed strange, even uncomfortable. A faint sense of doubt crept into her mind. But before she could fully think it through, the crow added another condition, one that changed everything. "Whoever wins," he said with a slight grin, "will have the right to eat the other." The words hung in the air. For a brief moment, the sparrow felt a chill run through her tiny body. Something about this didn't feel right. Her instincts whispered a warning. But then she looked at the crow again. He didn't seem serious. His tone sounded playful, almost teasing. The sparrow forced a small laugh, convincing herself that it was just a joke. Nothing more. After all, this was her friend. Why would he ever harm her? Trying to push away her uneasiness, she agreed. The game began. The sparrow stepped forward and pecked at a chili. The moment it touched her tongue, a sharp, burning sensation spread through her mouth. Her eyes watered instantly, and her throat felt like it was on fire. But she didn't stop. She had agreed to the game, and by nature she was honest and determined. She continued pecking at the chilies, one after another, enduring the intense heat with quiet strength. Beside her, the crow appeared to be doing the same. He moved quickly, pecking and tossing his head as if swallowing chili after chili. From a distance, it looked like he was far ahead, but what the sparrow couldn't see was the truth. Each time the sparrow turned her head or blinked through the burning tears, the crow secretly pushed the chilies under the mat with his beak. Instead of eating them, he was hiding them, creating an illusion of victory. His movements were quick, calculated, and deceptive. Time passed. The sparrow, exhausted and overwhelmed by the burning pain, slowed down. Her small body trembled, but she had eaten honestly. The crow, on the other hand, stepped back confidently. With a loud, triumphant voice, he declared, "Stop! The game is over." The sparrow looked at him, breathing heavily. "I have won," the crow announced proudly. "Just look around, I have eaten far more chilies than you." The sparrow glanced at the mat. To her eyes, it did seem that way. Her heart sank. Before she could process what was happening, the crow took a step closer. His friendly expression faded, replaced by something darker, something far more dangerous. His eyes gleamed with hunger. "And now," he said slowly, "you belong to me." In that moment, the sparrow felt her world shatter. The friend she trusted, the companion she believed in, had been lying all along. And now, she stood alone, trapped in a game she never truly understood.